Welcome to the Madhouse. We are here with some Path of Exile 2 Early Access Beta, and I want to address something that I heard. I guess speculation at this point, but people are speculating that Herald of Ice is going to be getting a nerf, and I want to reach out to the devs if at all possible. I doubt they'll ever see this, but I personally would like for them to look at the rest of the cold damage spells and skills before making a judgment on whether or not Herald should be nerfed. The problem is cold damage is fairly lackluster. I can't see a really good cold damage build in high-end game maps without the current state of Herald. Because honestly, yeah, like I said, cold damage in this game is lackluster. Even the conversions, you're losing a good 30% of damage, roughly. When you convert your fire with the blue flame bracers or your lightning with the Call of the Brotherhood Topaz ring, I go from 130 something, 37 to 152. But that's also because my gems aren't leveled up right now. When I use the ring, I'm using the ring right now because freezing things with Spark is nice crowd control when you get fucking swarmed like crazy in Act 3 by a lot of mobs. And it's pretty fun to put Frost Nexus on Spark and have the whole grounds chilled. But yeah, frost damage and cold damage in this game is very lackluster. I mean, even its main projectile is kind of weak. Granted, Frostbolt, it ramps up as it pierces, but the thing is if you get a rare in front of you or a boss, the only thing you can do is pray that you're going to be able to do enough damage, especially if it's a single target, because or if you have a rare right in your face, you're not going to be doing enough damage with Frostbolt to the initial target. It ramps up as it pierces, and the only way you can really get anything good to work as a main cold damage main spell like Frostbolt is to use either Fireball with the Blue Flame Bracers or Spark and Arc with the Call of the Brotherhood Topaz ring. Call of the Brotherhood Topaz ring. So yeah, please, I'm asking the devs, do not nerf. If this was in your agenda, do not nerf Herald, because it's really the only thing that we have to do high damage to things that are frozen with the freeze build. I had my witch. I was doing a completely cold build witch, and it's lacking. I'm using Blue Flame Bracers with the typical meta Fireball setup, and using that to freeze everything, and to do the main damage because it explodes on impact instead of piercing through. So, if you are gonna nerf it, I would say maybe make it a tier 8 Spirit Gem, similar to the Cast On abilities. Increase the spirit cost maybe a little bit. But damage wise, don't nerf it. And on the topic of nerfing things and nerfing builds within the first month of the early access release, come on guys, Don't you think that there's more important stuff like game mechanics, mapping issues, end game issues, you know, currency issues, drop rate issues? Because even in the current state, after you've buffed the drop rates, and then you killed any farming potential, killing all that farming potential it was a red flag to me, by the way. Um, I, we get it. You're a free to play game when it fully comes out, and you need to make money. So the more time we spend grinding in this game, the more likelihood that we're going to be spending money in your microtransaction shop. We get it. But I am a console player, and there's a few things that there's an issue for consoles, in my experience anyway. Like the auto locking onto things that are no off screen, the random shooting behind you for absolutely no reason, even when there's nothing there, unless it's way off screen and you really can't see it. Um, Mobility, I've never understood the targeting with the right analog stick. I mean, I guess it's so that you can move backwards while aiming. Give us a lock-on option then, and that it'll automatically lock on. Give us an option like that. But for controller, and I even in Diablo, I felt that this was an issue. It's very awkward to try to aim stuff and have to use your X button for things, for your abilities and whatnot, while trying to aim. X and square while trying to aim in games like this with that aiming mechanic has always been awkward. Optimization, there's crashes. I just had to reboot the game because I got stuck in the loading screen. I thought that was addressed a few patches ago, to be honest, when people were having problems with the crashing and the freezing and or getting stuck in loading screens during the trials. A lot of it, like optimization for console, frame rate drops, the stutter pauses, where the game pauses every now and then, like crazy. It's a lag thing, where when we lag, it pauses the game and stops it, and a lot of the times it's not stopping it in good spots. Like we're in the middle of a mob and then it lags, and whatever damage built up at the beginning of the lag, we're sitting there, and as soon as we come back, we get nailed with it. I personally think you guys need to slow it down on the build nerfs, because as you add content, some of those nerfs are going to probably end up being reverted or changed again to I feel that endgame should not have been introduced into the game this early. Campaign should have been focused on. If you wanted some endgame stuff, you could have done a third run of campaign. I mean, people are doing multiple friggin' crew runs on different characters, so having an extra difficulty to kind of imitate the difficulty of mapping would have been good. The introduction of the trade, I get it. I used to do web design. I know why you have trade available right now, because you get money off of clicks. Every time somebody goes to the website through the game, you get clicks on your site and you get money from it. I understand. But look at the problem with the market right now. The economy of the trading is ridiculous. I can't even get a rare without having to spend a divine. that I don't have access to. With all the problems that I'm having on console, mapping is garbage. Um, if you want to work on anything that has to do with skills and passives, take a look at the Blood Mage. Um, I don't think 10% of spell damage is a good concept for the life leech. I think it should be leech on hit. It would be a lot more sustainable. You have a little bit more versatility with the Blood Mage. Because the problem being is there's not a whole lot of spell damage you can put into it when you need absolutely the perfect number of critical hit chance to be able to stay alive and get benefit from the blood orbs. Sorceress needs their own skill tree, passive tree, and we'll get into the game and I'll show why. Providing this doesn't soft lock me into a loading screen. Alright, here we go. We'll go to passives. Okay. So, this passive skill tree is the exact same skill tree as for the witch, minus the fact that these two nodes don't have the minion damage in it, like the witch nodes do. So, these are all minion related nodes in the sorceress skill tree, branching off the main path of the skill tree. The exact same skill tree as the witch. Here is an alternative if you're gonna nerf one of the better cold damage builds, skills. Give us a skill tree that maybe this skill tree here, maybe this skill tree over here, even though this still has some minion stuff. Or give her a separate skill tree and remove some of these minions and put some cold related nodes, some more elemental damage nodes, more nodes that are specific to straight casting. Because I'm not gonna do any of this crap here. Why do I have minions nodes so heavily near in my path of my sorceress tree? See, having this skill tree the way it is for the sorceress is nerfing the sorceress hardcore. Because of all the minion nodes for the witch, minions are what make witches really strong. When you're going a pure caster as a sorceress, you don't use the minions. So all that damage and all that additional shit that the witch gets from their minions, we're not using that. So without all this stuff here being used, you're hindering the sorceress potential so much. And the fact that we gotta waste so many points to go into other trees. Right now, I personally am doing a hybrid build because Spark is a projectile damage spell. I'm going to be taking some projectile damage and projectile related nodes because that's why I'm using the bow and quiver instead of a wand and focus. because I wanted to test out boosting elemental damage, not any specific elemental damage, but boosting elemental damage and some spell damage. I wanted to see how that would work. So I'm gonna look at spell damage. Now, besides these two nodes, I'm gonna tell you right now, most of the nodes that I'm gonna look at that say spell damage minus, yeah, increased spell damage for critically hit. These nodes here are the only other additional real spell damage nodes. These are all spell area damage, spell critical damage, let's see, what's this? Like, and it's another thing. You got the physical damage dealt nodes here. The only physical damage that we have for skills for casters are the bone skills. Bone Storm, Bone Cage, Unearth. And there's no way to add physical damage to actual spells. Because if there was, see, I have a Blood Mage Witch that isn't utilizing minions. So being forced to utilize Unearth and still make it a minion build is still messing. It's not. It makes me wonder why you have all this cross-class capability, but with so many restrictions to doing so. I feel that the sorceress and the witch need similar, but not the identical same passive tree. Because literally the only two nodes that are different in the two trees are this. And the funny thing is we lose the minion damage here on these two nodes, and it stays at 8% increased spell damage. When the sorceress, this should be at least 10. These should all be 10% increase. Because if you think about it, the witch gets more damage from these nodes than the sorceress does. And the sorceress is a pure caster. And, you know, you don't see very many witches tossing spells while they're, you got Flame Wall, yeah, or the occasional Fireball build. Okay. But besides that, there's not really any, efficient spell damage. It's like, what, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 96 total percent increased spell damage in the base skill tree. Critical spell damage. So yeah, I feel that and then in order to get any more than that, we gotta travel all the way down through, all the way around, like super, like far around this, to start getting, what, another 8. %. I don't know. I think the sorcerer skill tree needs to be separate. We don't need all the minion nodes. Those two initial nodes down here should at least be 10%, considering that it has an extra 8% minion damage for the Witch, but we have no actual increase to these nodes as a pure caster. Pure caster should be given more spell damage than the Witch. The Witch has her minions to do a lot of the work for her. Yes, she can use some spell damage too, but the majority of the builds for the Witch are minion based, and they're going to be the priority or the main damage source. So we don't use minions as a sorceress. The sorceress needs her own skill tree, not literally the exact same skill tree as a witch that utilizes minions. There's way too many minion nodes in this area that could be changed for something for more utility and more, more use for the sorceress. And I get it. Yeah, okay. The sorceress builds, the Stormweaver builds are fucking really strong out there right now. But look at the ridiculous amount of wasted points. If we had these nodes close by, we could then put more into, what is it, recouped life for survivability, the more energy shield. If we were able to have the more spell damage instead of going all the way over here and anywhere else around fucking the world of this map. See, I think a lot of the problems that we're having with this game when it comes to survivability is the fact that these devs aren't knowing what to do now that they removed a lot of the defensive nodes to make the skill trees easier. And with the current state of crafting, it is absolutely ridiculous when it comes to survivability. I can't even clear tier 1 maps by myself because my survivability as a blood mage is horrible, because 10% of spell damage, I don't have a whole lot of spell damage because I focused on more crit damage for survivability with the orbs, but I'm not doing enough base damage if I'm not critting, and that is the problem. So I'm having a respec, and I'm gonna tell you too, a lot of these sites that are selling gold and items, you're doing it to yourself. People are going to these sites and enabling and encouraging these sites to exist because of the state of the game. I keep getting told, oh, that's just how PoE is. Well, I'm sorry to say that people have spent 10 years of their life playing a game with broken mechanics and being complacent and not speaking up about it. And the way I look at it right now, this generation of gamers are going to destroy this game once it's released. I don't think these devs are comprehending the difference between the thick skin of gamers 10 years ago that were willing to deal with the difficulty and the bullshit that PoE 1 gave them, comparatively to the generation of gamers that we're dealing with right now that cried and complained and wanted a difficulty slider for games like Sifu. People complaining about the DLC of Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, being too difficult. Was it difficult? Yeah, it was difficult. Was it fucking amazing when I finally beat Radahn? Yeah, of course it was. And that's the whole thing that, Dark Souls games have always been about. It's that dopamine hit finally getting that fucking pain in the ass boss, specifically games like Sekiro. But I'm reaching out to the devs, not that they're gonna ever see this, because I'm a fucking little nobody streamer. I'm not Ghazi or any of them guys that fucking apparently clearly have the attention of the devs. But if you're wanting to bring new players in to Path of Exile franchise, we all know where those players are going to have to come from. Because the PC fanboys of Path of Exiles, they already exist there. You're not going to really be pulling in very many new players from PC. It's all going to be console. And the fact that you're worrying more about nerfing builds the first month of early access as your main concern just proves to me that you guys are just as money hungry as any other AAA corporate greedy company, and that the reason you're nerfing builds right now is because you want people to struggle with weaker builds and harder content so that they spend more time in your game and spend more money. Taking out the farming spots instead of reducing the drop rates of those specific enemies was also a blatant sign of the same thing. You want the player to struggle. You want the player to play the game and die over and over and over again. You want to take, even with your air quotes here, buff to resource drops and, currency drops. I see right through that. I see what you did. Act 1, I can start a character brand new in Act 1 and get more exalted by the time I get to 100 grounds in Act 1 than spending a day in Act 3 Cruel. And I know why you do that. You do that because you give the new player a false sense of security and saying, oh, look, this happened with my monk. My monk's only level 16 and I got fully kitted out six modifier rare pieces because of the amount of exalteds that I got in Act 1 on that character was ridiculous. And it drops exponentially by the time you get to Act 3, even in normal mode. You won't get those kind of rates at all. So when you say that you increase the currency drop rate, you did it for new characters in Act 1 and early Act 2-ish, but mostly Act 1. To give the new player a false sense of security to make them want to continue to play past Act 1. And then it gets drastically slower when it comes to currency drops as the acts get harder. And that's part of the frustration, especially with the current state of the crafting. I think the ancient style of crafting that Path of Exiles has needs to be tweaked a bit. It would be nice to have the ability to pinpoint specific modifiers that we want to change, instead of taking the random chance of bricking a good piece of gear and having nothing. Because when you break a good piece of gear that you're currently using, you literally have to start over. Like if you're in campaign and you're crafting shit to progress easier, there'll be a point in time where your defenses and whatnot, let's just say it's a chess piece, or even a weapon. A weapon is even worse off because you can't do damage without your good weapon, which means you're gonna have to go back in time on the play in the playlist of areas. So I'm in Act 2. I borked a freaking weapon. I'm no longer now doing the damage I was doing. I have to go back to Act 1 and try to get a replacement weapon and craft a replacement weapon, or use the trade, which is another money making thing. So yeah, the crafting could at least use the ability to pinpoint the exact modifier that you want changed instead of randomly doing it and completely destroying a good piece of gear, which in campaign would force you to drop back an act until you get another replacement, slowing down progress, keeping the people in the game. You're so worried about losing money because people are going to get bored at end game if they have a good build. It's going to actually destroy the game for you. And as I said, you need to work on the game mechanics, console optimization, because like I told you, you already got the PC players. PC players are spreading word of mouth. People, Path of Exiles is all over the internet, all over YouTube, all over Twitter. People are talking about Path of Exiles. So PC players are going to be getting their information from other PC players. But the demographic that you are looking at to pull in are going to be console players. And if this game isn't, optimized for console, you're going to get stuck with the same freaking couple of 100,000 players. I'm already seeing videos of people after 1 month of early access. I've already got like 500, almost 500 hours in the game. You already got people within a month walking away from the game and coming back later in your early access to see how it's doing. That's not a good sign. So yeah, Sorceress needs her own skill trees. Um, I don't know, make it so that the one on the left is the Sorceress skill tree instead of the same exact skill tree as the one that the witch has. I mean, you get your spell damage nodes right there. You see them blinking. That's more likely, better off for the sorceress. Um, Stop worrying about nerfing builds. Do not nerf Herald of Ice because for frost damage and for the cold damage skills, it's really all we got. Because Frostbolt was a badly done main projectile skill for cold damage. Because yeah, cool, it ramps up the more it pierces, but when you get a rare mob beating on your face and you're doing the least damage to that mob comparatively to what's around them, that's a bad design of Frostbolt. And it does nothing for when you're going against it. That's why. That's why if I'm gonna do a cold damage, I'll convert it with Blue Flame or the Call of the Brotherhood. I've been kind of rambling because it's like 4 in the morning and I'm tired as fuck. And seriously, just these things, you guys need to comprehend that you're banking on new players to come to this game. Well, if you're going to be the typical PC developers that port a game to console and just completely forget console exists, you're not going to get those new players that you're hoping for. There's tens of millions of people on PlayStation. And I guarantee you, half of your current recurring players in the last month of early access, the majority of them, that 500,000 number that you get, I guarantee you about at least half, if not 300,000 of them, or maybe even more, are from console. And if you're not going to look into console optimization, then 10 years from now, I'll see how Path of Exile is doing. PoE 2 is doing. Because I'll just go to the next game. Because the thing is you got to understand, if this game is not good for a console, and it's a free-to-play, it's not going to be worth the effort or time to deal with all the bullshit. They'll just uninstall and go back to Fortnite if they want to play free-to-play. So yeah, I'm seeing red flags with this, with Grinding Gears right now. They're seeming to be all out for money, putting the trade up so early in early access, the economy being completely fucked up, nerfing builds and everything, removing farm spots instead of instead of just reducing the drop rates for those specific mobs. Um, Corporate greed is showing. They just want you to struggle and spend so much time in their game that you're going to be spending money in the microtransaction shop. And they want the economy of the trade to be friggin' all over the place right now, because it doesn't matter as long as you're clicking visit trade website in the game or going to their website and clicking on it. They're getting money from your clicks. That's why Endgame exists. That's why the economy exists with trade a month into early access. It's because it's making the money while they're doing the early access. And they still haven't fixed the problem. I have 5 tabs that I purchased as premium tabs for my guild stash, and every single one of them have come after purchase and been normal tabs, and they still haven't fixed it. You're paying. I would go and get another one, but I don't. What's the point? I'm spending more points. It's been 3 days since I last tried. We'll try it again. Every tab I have, besides the quad tab in my guild stash, in the gem and currency, obviously, these were all meant to be premiums. Alright? I don't have the make public option down here. No private option, no public option. So that's another tab. They haven't even kill switched it. I'm sure I'm not the only one that has an issue with this. So 5 tabs now that are supposed to be premium. And the only thing they did was they friggin' refunded me the 35 coins when they were doing the friggin' holiday discount on the premium tabs. They haven't fixed and given me my premium tabs. They haven't refunded me the 50 points for the other 4 tabs, or 3 tabs at the time. It's still broken and not working, and it's been brought to their attention. And they haven't even removed the ability to purchase it. They're allowing people to screw themselves over and not get the tabs that they're paying for. So yeah, it's disgusting. These guys don't care. It's all about money.